Hi there. The day is beautiful. I was just writing down some notes I wanted to share with you. I was getting into conflict styles and ways to resolve, conflicts. So, do you encounter a lot of conflicts either at home or at work? Do members of your team at your job or in your family struggle to communicate effectively? There are many different types of conflict styles, and choosing the right style is actually critical to managing conflict effectively even. So, the best one can do is learn how to best utilize the 5 conflict handling styles and how to reduce interpersonal conflict in the home or workplace with simple conflict resolution strategies. So conflict styles, sometimes called conflict resolution styles, conflict management, or even handling conflict are the ways in which people choose to deal with when they are approached with conflict. There isn't one perfect way to deal with conflict, and not every person or conflict we face is exactly the same. The way we might resolve a conflict with our romantic partner is likely quite different from the way we might manage a conflict with a coworker, right? Or, client. But also, but it's just as important. We need to alter our communication style depending on a number of different considerations. It is also important to note that conflict doesn't need to be negative. It's a good thing if the people on your team feel comfortable enough with each other to express their opinions and stand behind them. So conflict is a natural outcome of decision-making even. And as every group and every team is made up of individuals with individual opinions and worldviews, conflict is actually necessary to achieve consensus. There are 5 conflict management styles. So there's avoiding, accommodating, compromising, collaborating, and competing. So some are better than others for dealing with conflict, but there are situations for every style. Resolving a conflict about what to order for lunch doesn't hold as much importance, for example, compared to resolving a conflict about a family, like an event or even a team project at work. If you're in a family of 5 and 4 people, for example, want mushrooms on their pizza, you may choose the accommodating conflict management style and accept the wishes of 4 other family members. After all, if you really don't like mushrooms, you can just pick them off your slice, right? But to consider when choosing a conflict style, the importance of the issue. You got to look at, what the conflict is built up from. You think about your investment in the situation, the consequences of the situation, the risks, the prolonged putting it off, or your relationship with the other person or people, the personalities, communication style of other persons or people, what their style is. You can also look at how much time and energy you have available, and their moral issues or beliefs you need to take into account most times too. So most people I talk to don't like interpersonal conflict, but often that's because they don't have the skills to do it well. Each of these styles vary according to 2 factors, whether it involves direct or indirect communication of thoughts and feelings, and to what extent the communication is delivered in a way that seeks to preserve relationships. The first one comes across as assertive. This is direct communication that does seek to preserve the relationship. Thoughts and feelings are expressed clearly and directly. Communication is kind, respectful, and seeks to preserve the relationship. Assertive conflict communication is ideal, especially when with an assertive listener, Assertive communication gets harder and progressively less effective the more aggressive or passive-aggressive your listener is, even. So the second one is aggressive. Direct communication that does not seek to preserve the relationship. These thoughts and feelings are expressed clearly and directly, but communication is harsh, it's offensive, it's unkind, or it's disrespectful. It is instrumental, meant to manipulate, to intimidate, to control or injure. What's communicated is that the communicator's needs, desires, and agenda are more important than preserving the relationship. So aggressive communication isn't necessarily bad. It can be very useful, especially when earlier attempts at assertive communication have yielded no results, or when the communicator is feeling seriously threatened or unsafe. The next one is passive. So indirect communication that does seek to preserve the relationship. Thoughts and feelings are expressed indirectly, unclearly, or not at all. The communicator's passivity seeks to avoid overt conflict and thereby preserve the relationship. People choose passivity for many reasons. Sometimes it's because they're afraid that if they communicate more assertively, it will make someone mad or hurt their feelings. Sometimes it's because they're afraid that engaging in conflict might threaten the integrity of the relationship. Sometimes it's because of the insecurities, lack of self-esteem, or underdeveloped sense of self. Passive-aggressive. This is indirect communication that does not seek to preserve the relationship. Thoughts and feelings are expressed indirectly, unclearly, or not at all. The communicator's frustration and anger over their passive communication being ignored or misunderstood come out in aggressive and vindictive or uncooperative behavior behind the scenes. So the communicator's overwhelmed need to engage in direct face-to-face conflict takes precedent over preserving the relationship. So passive aggression also often shows up in situations where communication feels that it would be, or they feel that the communication would be pointless to speak up because they are in a position of lower power and they perceive that those in power over them are not listening. Communication is challenging even when there isn't a conflict. As diverse human beings, we simply don't always attribute to the same meaning to the same words. How we interpret what is said to us is filtered through. So it's who we are, or our background, or our education, individually, or our values, our beliefs, our needs, positions, jobs, and so much more. When we add the dimension of conflict, which often involves feelings, anger, frustration, worry, clear and effective communication becomes even more challenging. I have a list of necessary important components to implement to both sides of the debate to give equal understanding to both perspectives, to be non-blaming, and give way to equal opportunity for resolution, because that's the goal, right? So we have active listening, using open-ended questions. Try paraphrasing. Acknowledge those involved, their feelings, even emotional responses, right? Nonverbal encourages either eye contact and or leaning into the person talking versus like looking away, demonstrating you care. Summarizing, putting together what was heard for playback. So you are demonstrating progress has been made with the discussion. Being assertive and non-blaming, which implies an ability to speak up for yourself, your wants and needs, without putting the other person down or ignoring their legitimate wants or needs too. Then finally, the following skills will assist you to discuss issues without blame or aggression. So use I statements is a big one. This brings the focus to the experience, the thoughts, the feelings, the reactions, and decisions, and not on anyone's beliefs or judgments you may have about the other person. Sentences that begin with either you always or you are make broad, inaccurate generalizations about the other person and often lead to the other person feeling blamed and judged. Describe specifically what your concerns are. To be assertive involves describing to the other person as specifically as you can what your concern is. Being specific is very important, and it gives the other person direct information regarding what is their views or behavior that concerns you. They do not need to guess or read between the lines. Express clearly the impact of the problem. So being assertive also involves being willing to tell the other person about your emotional response and the impact for you. For example, I feel frustrated and angry when the list is not ready. I depend on it to get my work done. So this provides the person with clear information about the impact of the behavior on you without blame or judgment. So specify your needs and wants. A final component of being assertive is exploring and sharing with the other person what it is you need and want in the working relationship. Being specific regarding your own needs and wants is essential info to have on the table when you begin looking at the future and at what options might work to resolve the conflict. I personally have known that conflict is really difficult. There's more emotion involved, I would say, obviously at home, family versus like work. But we get just as passionate, this is our decision making. So the best we can do is gather the most information we can and consider everyone's feelings and find ways to work through so there's no longer a conflict, right? Okay. Hope this helped. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.